The stars looked peaceful that night, but peace was a lie. Far beyond the quiet light of the Milky Way, a fleet of alien ships moved in silence, their black hulls hiding them from the human satellites that watched the skies. They called themselves the Xylar Dominion, a proud and ancient race that believed they ruled every intelligent species in the galaxy. For thousands of years, they had studied and conquered hundreds of planets, but one world still confused them: Earth. They could observe it, record signals, and intercept human transmissions, but something about the humans always made no sense. The data said they were weak, emotional, and violent toward each other. Yet somehow, they had survived everything. Commander Rethar stood at the edge of the viewing deck, his tall form covered in dark armor that shimmered faintly under the blue lights of the ship. His 4 eyes stared at the image of Earth spinning slowly on the holoscreen. "They are not advanced," he said in a cold tone. "Not like us. But still, every attempt to infiltrate their world ends in silence." Beside him, the scientist Verith adjusted his translation device. "We lost 3 probes, Commander. Each one burned up before reaching the surface. No signal returned. It is as if something down there knows we are watching." Rethar's mouth curved into something that could almost be called a smile. "Then we will not watch anymore. We will go." The bridge fell silent. No one in the crew expected that. Landing on a pre-hyperdrive planet was forbidden by galactic law, but Rethar was not a leader who followed rules. He was obsessed with one question: what makes humans different? A week later, the ship Silent Eye entered Earth's orbit under stealth mode. They landed in a desert at night, far from cities, where only the wind could hear them. A small team of 5 soldiers and 2 scientists stepped out, covered in cloaking fields. At first, everything seemed normal. Empty land. Dry air. No life. But then, Veritha's scanner began to shake. "Commander, there's something strange. The ground is full of electromagnetic patterns. Like a grid. Artificial." Rethar crouched down and placed his clawed hand on the sand. It was warm, not from the sun, but from energy moving underneath. He ordered his men to dig. They dug for hours until their shovels hit metal. Beneath the sand, they found a massive steel surface that stretched farther than their scanners could see. "It's a structure," Verith whispered. "Buried here. Older than any human building." Rethar's eyes widened. "Activate the door." A thin blue beam from their tool traced the edges of a hidden hatch. With a heavy hiss, it opened, revealing a dark tunnel leading deep below the earth. The air inside was cold, but it carried a strange hum, like a heartbeat. They entered one by one, their boots echoing softly. Strange symbols glowed on the walls, curved shapes that looked nothing like any human language. "This isn't theirs," Verith said quietly. "Humans couldn't have built this." "Then who did?" Rethar replied. As they moved deeper, the tunnel widened into a great hall. In the center stood a glass cylinder filled with mist. Inside the mist floated something, human. Or almost human. It looked like a person sleeping, perfectly preserved. But its eyes, closed and calm, gave off faint light, as if something inside was still alive. Rethar stepped closer. "A specimen?" he asked. "No. Commander," Verith said. "This isn't a corpse. It's active. Some kind of stasis field." Suddenly, the lights in the hall flickered. Their scanners went blank. The hum in the air grew louder. "What's happening?" shouted one of the soldiers. Before anyone could answer, the eyes of the figure inside the glass opened. They glowed bright white. The walls around them began to shift, metal turning like liquid. Strange markings appeared in midair, spinning symbols they couldn't read. The whole place came alive, as if it had been waiting for them. "Retreat!" Rethar yelled. "Get back to the ship." But it was too late. The ground split open, revealing more glowing tubes beneath, each holding another sleeping figure. Dozens. Hundreds. "Are these humans?" Verith whispered. Rethar turned, his voice almost shaking. If they are, then humanity's secret is not what we thought. The glass cylinder cracked with a sharp sound. The being inside slowly stepped out. Its feet touched the floor without a sound. It looked at them, not with fear, but with pity. Then, in perfect Xyler language, it spoke. "You should not have come here." The soldiers froze. No human had ever spoken their tongue before. "Who are you?" Rethar demanded, raising his weapon. The being tilted its head. "We were the first. The ones who left before you were born. Humanity's memory forgot us, but the Earth did not." The ship's comms filled with static. Outside, the sky above the desert began to shimmer, as if the stars themselves were moving. Varitha's voice trembled. "Commander, I think we just woke something older than the planet." Rethar stared at the glowing figure. For the first time in his long life, he felt fear. And then, everything went white. When the white light faded, Commander Rethar found himself lying on the cold ground. His vision blurred. The tunnel was gone. The walls, the metal, the symbols, all had vanished. Only sand and sky remained. For a moment, he thought he was back outside the structure, but the stars above him looked wrong. Brighter, sharper, closer. His soldiers were scattered around, still alive but confused. "Report," he growled, pushing himself up. No one answered right away. Varith stood a few meters away, staring at the horizon with a pale face. "Commander, look." Rethar turned, and his breath caught in his throat. The desert was no longer a desert. Towering stone ruins surrounded them, massive pillars and arches covered in carvings. But they were not new. They were ancient. Dust and vines covered everything. The air smelled of age. "This can't be," whispered one of the soldiers. "We were underground. This is somewhere else." Varith checked his scanner, but the device blinked uselessly. No signal. No orbit. No galactic time sink. "Commander, I think we've been displaced, moved through time or space. Maybe both." Before Rethar could respond, a soft voice echoed from behind them. "You disturbed the sleep that kept the balance." They turned. The glowing being stood there, just as before, human in shape, calm in face, its eyes pure white. The air around it shimmered slightly, as if reality itself bent to its presence. Rethar aimed his weapon, though he already knew it would do nothing. "What are you? Explain yourself." The figure looked at him with quiet sadness. "We were once like you, searchers, builders, conquerors. Long before your kind crossed the stars, humanity had already touched them. But we learned too much. We saw what should never be seen." Varith stepped forward. "You mean, humans were spacefaring before the current age? That's impossible. Their history is broken," the figure finished. "Forgotten by choice. To protect themselves." Rethar's voice turned cold. "Protect themselves from what?" The figure lifted its hand. The air rippled. Images formed, vast cities of shining towers, ships larger than moons, and humans walking among stars. But then came darkness. The towers fell. The ships burned. Something unseen moved between the stars like a shadow, devouring light. "The Voidborn," the figure said softly. "They came from outside creation. They consumed everything that thought, everything that dreamed. Humanity fought them, and lost." The images showed desperate battles, humans using strange energy weapons, collapsing stars to trap the enemy. But it wasn't enough. The shadow spread. "To stop them," the figure continued, "we made the ultimate choice. We erased ourselves. The survivors returned to this world and sealed our knowledge, so no one would awaken what still sleeps in the dark." Rethar's heart pounded. "You mean to tell me, your people did this to hide from something?" The figure nodded. "And by coming here, you have called attention again. The Voidborn feel movement. They listen." As if answering those words, the sky flickered. The stars above them twisted into spirals of black and red. The temperature dropped sharply. Vareth shouted, "Commander, readings spiking, unknown energy signatures." Rethar turned to his crew. "Back to the ship. Now." They ran across the ancient ruins, their feet kicking up dust. The air buzzed with static. A sound filled the night, a deep, slow hum that wasn't made by any machine. It came from everywhere at once. Suddenly, the ground split open behind them. A wave of darkness spilled out, not smoke, not liquid, something else, something alive. It crawled across the ground, swallowing stone and light alike. One soldier screamed as the black wave touched his foot. In seconds, he vanished. No bones, no armor, nothing left. "Move!" Rethar roared. They reached the place where their ship should have been, but it wasn't there. Only a crater remained, glowing faintly with blue heat. Vareth fell to his knees. "It's gone. Everything gone." The figure appeared again, standing on the other side of the crater. "You cannot fight it with weapons," it said. "Only knowledge can stop what comes." Rethar glared. "Then tell me how." The figure stepped closer. "You must find the keepers. They were left behind when the first erasure happened. Hidden among your kind. They do not know what they are, but they carry the code to awaken the defense." Rethar frowned. "Hidden among humans?" "Yes," the figure said. "They live as ordinary people, but inside their minds lies the last weapon of humanity. You must reach them before the Voidborn do." The dark wave in the distance began to rise, forming tall, twisted shapes like shadows trying to stand. The figure's light started to fade. "Wait!" Vareth shouted. "Where do we find them?" The being looked at him one last time. "Follow the signal of the forgotten heart. The one that never stopped beating." And then it vanished, leaving behind only a pulse of white light that sank into the ground. The soldiers stood in silence, the wind whispering through the ruins. Vareth looked at his commander. "What do we do now?" Rethar took a deep breath, his gaze fixed on the black horizon. "We find these humans. The keepers. If they carry the weapon, it may be the only way to stop what's coming." The wind howled louder. The stars above bent and trembled, as if the universe itself feared what had been woken. Behind them, in the distance, the shadows began to move again. Slow, crawling, hungry. Rethar tightened his grip on his weapon and whispered, "May the galaxy forgive us." And with that, the survivors started walking toward the unknown, unaware that Earth itself was beginning to remember. The wind was colder now. The desert around Rethar and his team had changed again. When the blinding light faded for the second time, they found themselves not in ruins, but in the middle of a modern city. Lights, cars, noise. Humans moved everywhere, talking, laughing, living their simple lives, unaware that something beyond their world had just shifted. Varetha's scanner blinked wildly. "Commander," he whispered. "This is Earth. Current date, current cycle. Somehow, we're back." Rethar looked around, his armor's cloaking field hiding his true form. The city was alive, streets lined with neon signs, air filled with smoke and energy. The humans were still here. Still thriving. Still completely blind to the danger approaching. "Keep your scanners active," Rethar said. "We find the keepers before the darkness does." They moved through the city's back alleys, invisible to human eyes. The sound of sirens and laughter mixed in the air. Everything looked peaceful, but Rethar could feel the same hum he had heard underground, the pulse of something ancient, buried deep under the surface of this world. Then, the scanner beeped. Vareth stopped, looking at his handheld device. "Signal detected. Bioenergy signature matches what the being described. It's close. Less than a kilometer. Lead the way," Rethar ordered. They followed the signal through narrow streets until they reached a small, quiet neighborhood. There, inside an old apartment building, the signal pulsed strongly. Vareth pointed to the door of room 304. "It's coming from there." Rethar nodded. Cloak mode. Observe before we act. They entered silently, passing through the walls like shadows. Inside, a young woman sat at a desk, writing on a tablet. Her hair was dark, her eyes calm, but the air around her vibrated faintly, like hidden power waiting to wake. Verith whispered. She's human. Early 20s. No implants, no cybermods. Just ordinary. Yet the signal is strongest here, Rethar said. The woman paused her writing suddenly. She looked around, as if she felt something. Who's there? Rethar froze. She couldn't see them, not through their cloaking fields, but her gaze turned directly toward him. Commander, Verith whispered. She senses us. The lights flickered. The air grew heavy. Then, in a soft voice, the woman said, You're not supposed to be here. Before Rethar could move, the room shifted. The walls bent, the floor cracked, and a blinding pulse of light threw his team backward. Their cloaks failed, revealing their alien forms. The woman stood, her eyes glowing faint gold. The seal is breaking, she whispered. You brought it closer. Rethar rose, his armor smoking. You're one of them, the keepers. She nodded slowly. Yes. But I didn't know until now. Verith looked at her in disbelief. Then you know about the Voidborn? The woman's expression darkened. Not all. Only fragments. Dreams. A voice that speaks when I sleep. It says something is coming. Something that remembers us. Outside, thunder rumbled though the sky was clear. Street lights flickered. Somewhere in the distance, people screamed. Rethar turned to the window. The horizon was burning black. A dark mist rolled across the city like a living wave, swallowing everything it touched. It's too soon, Verith whispered. They found us. The woman stepped closer. No. They found me. She placed her hand on the air, and glowing symbols appeared, ancient shapes, the same ones Rethar had seen beneath the desert. Commander, she said, her voice steady but urgent. I can hold them back for a short time. But you must find the others. There are 6 more. If all awaken, we can stop what's coming. Rethar frowned. Where are they? The woman closed her eyes, breathing deeply. I don't know exactly. But their signals call to mine. I can show you. She touched Verith's scanner, and 7 lights appeared on its screen. 7 points scattered across the world. Go, she said. Before the darkness takes me. The floor trembled. The sound of screams grew louder outside. Through the window, black shapes began to form, tall and thin, like shadows walking on 2 legs. Their eyes glowed red, and their movements were wrong, jerky, unnatural. The Voidborn, Rethar muttered. They're here. Verith's voice shook. We can't fight them. The woman turned to him, her golden eyes burning brighter. You don't have to. Just run. She raised both hands. The walls of the apartment exploded outward in a burst of golden energy, throwing the dark figures back into the street. Light spread like fire, cutting through the black mist. Go! She screamed. Rethar grabbed Verith by the shoulder and pulled him toward the exit. Fall back to the ship site. We regroup and plan. They ran through the chaos, humans fleeing in terror as the city began to twist under the pressure of 2 impossible forces. Behind them, the light from the apartment reached the sky. For a moment, it looked as if a sun had been born right in the middle of the city. When they stopped to catch their breath, Rethar looked back. The building was gone, only a crater of gold dust remained. Verith's voice was quiet. She's gone. No, Rethar said. She awakened. He looked at the scanner again. 6 lights still pulsed faintly. The world was bigger than ever now, and far more dangerous. Commander, Verith said, his tone uncertain. Even if we find the others, can we really stop this? It's their world, not ours. Rethar looked up at the storm-filled sky. If Earth falls, the galaxy follows. Humanity's secret may be our only hope. Above them, lightning cracked, Not blue, but black. And somewhere far away, deep under the ocean, something ancient stirred. The ocean was endless black. Far below the waves, deeper than sunlight could ever reach, Rethar's small stealth craft moved through the silence like a ghost. The hum of the engines was low, barely more than a whisper. Outside, pressure crushed everything, but not the ship. Its alien hull shimmered faintly, pushing back the sea's weight with invisible energy. Vareth sat beside the scanner, watching the readings carefully. Signal confirmed. The next keeper is here, he said. Inside a human research base, 8 kilometers below. Rethar nodded, his expression hard. Do they know what they're guarding? No, Vareth said. To them, it's a deep-sea lab studying thermal vents. But the energy coming from it, it's the same as the golden light from the first keeper. Ancient. Alive. Rethar leaned forward, watching the dark waters outside. Strange shapes floated in the distance. Massive silhouettes, moving slowly in the black. Not fish. Not whales. Things without names. Prepare the infiltration suits, he ordered. We enter undetected. The ship reached the base. A cluster of metal domes rested on the ocean floor, their lights faint and flickering. A long tunnel connected them like veins. The words Poseidon Research Station glowed weakly on one of the domes. They entered through a maintenance hatch, silent as shadows. Inside, everything was quiet, too quiet. No voices. No footsteps. Only the soft beep of machines. Something's wrong, Vareth muttered. They moved deeper into the station. Human tools lay scattered on the floor. Coffee cups, half full. Data pads blinking with unfinished logs. But no people. Rethar touched the wall. It was warm, almost pulsing. This place is alive, he said. In the main control room, they found the first body. A human scientist sat slumped over a console, eyes open, face pale. His veins glowed faintly blue. Energy drain, Vareth said softly. Something fed on him. Before Rethar could answer, the scanner beeped. The keeper's signal was close, just beyond a heavy sealed door marked biocontainment. Rethar stepped forward. Open it. The door hissed and slid aside. Inside was a large tank filled with water. Blue light shimmered through it. Something floated inside. A woman. She was motionless, eyes closed, her hair waving gently in the current. Varetha's voice trembled. She's human, but readings show energy levels off the charts. Rethar stared. Another keeper. They approached slowly. Symbols glowed faintly on the glass, ancient markings like those under the desert. Vareth touched a console. Commander, her name was Dr. Ilara Miles. Human oceanographer. The logs say she discovered a strange energy source near the Mariana Rift 5 months ago. Then everything started to change. The lights flickered. The woman's eyes opened. Bright gold like the first keeper. The water in the tank boiled instantly. The glass cracked. Back. Rethar shouted. The tank exploded outward, flooding the room. Steam filled the air. When it cleared, the woman was standing on the floor, calm and silent. The water slid away from her body, as if obeying her. You shouldn't be here, she said, her voice deep, echoing like the ocean itself. Rethar lowered his weapon slightly. We are here to find you. The world is under threat. The Voidborn have returned. She looked at him with strange understanding. Then it begins again. Vareth stepped forward carefully. You know about them? She nodded slowly. I see what they are. They do not just destroy, they erase. Memory, time, meaning. Everything they touch becomes nothing. Rethar clenched his fists. Then help us stop them. The first keeper told us there are 7 of you. Together, you can awaken the defense. Ilara closed her eyes. The defense is not a weapon. It's a choice. Before they could ask more, alarms began to scream. The walls trembled. Red lights flashed. "Commander!" Vareth shouted. "Something's coming through the outer dome." Through the observation window, they saw it, a dark shape rising from the deep. Massive. Silent. Its body was made of shifting black fog, its eyes two red stars burning in the dark. The Voidborn. Rethar's voice was hard. "Evacuate the station." Ilara turned toward the window, her eyes glowing brighter. "No. It followed me here. I'll hold it back." "You can't fight that," Vareth shouted. "I don't need to fight," she said. "I just need to remember." She raised her hand. The entire station shook. Water outside froze solid, trapping the Voidborn's form for a moment. Then, from the ice, thousands of glowing symbols appeared, ancient human runes, forming a massive circle. The creature screamed, its voice shaking the sea. Ilara looked at Rethar. "Go north. Find the one called Jonas Hale. He dreams of fire. He will guide you." Rethar hesitated. "What about you?" Ilara smiled faintly. "The ocean remembers me. It will not let me die." The pressure outside increased. The walls cracked. "Commander!" Vareth shouted. "We have to move." Rethar gave her one last look. "You are humanity's courage," he said. She nodded. "And you are its witness." They escaped through the service tunnel, their suits glowing faint blue as they pushed toward the surface. Behind them, the station imploded silently, swallowed by a storm of gold and black light. When they finally broke the surface, the ocean was calm again. No debris. No sound. Just silence. Vareth floated beside him, exhausted. "She's gone." Rethar looked toward the horizon. "No," he said quietly. "She's watching from below." He opened the scanner. 6 lights had become 5. But one pulsed brighter now, the next keeper. "Jonas Hale," he murmured. "Dreams of fire." Above them, dark clouds gathered over the ocean, twisting like a wound in the sky. The Voidborn had tasted the world again. The world was no longer the same. Since the night the sea burned with golden light, strange things began to happen across Earth. Entire streets vanished for minutes at a time. Shadows moved against the sun. Clocks stopped ticking, then jumped ahead hours later. People whispered that the planet was sick. But Rethar knew the truth. Something ancient was waking. He stood at the edge of a ruined airfield, wind howling across the broken tarmac. The ship silent, I hummed quietly behind him, its engines masked by cloaking fields. Vareth checked the readings again. "The next keeper's signal is stable. He's on land, Commander. Somewhere in this city, Chicago, the humans call it." "Jonas Hale," Rethar said, repeating the name given by the Ocean Keeper. "Dreams of fire." Vareth nodded. "Human physicist. Works for their space agency. Known for theories about dark energy manipulation. He thinks he's studying gravity, but he's really touching something else." Rethar looked toward the horizon where tall buildings cut into the clouds. "Then he's closer to the truth than any of them realize." They entered the city under disguise. Their projection tech gave them human forms, plain, forgettable faces. They moved through the crowded streets, unseen among thousands of people rushing through their lives. But the air felt wrong. Heavy. Cold. Vareth frowned. "Commander, look." Up in the sky, the clouds twisted in a perfect spiral above one building, a research facility at the city's edge. Lightning flickered inside it, black and silent. "That's where he is," Rethar said. Inside the facility, alarms were already blaring. Human guards ran through corridors, shouting orders, unaware that reality itself was breaking around them. Glass screens flickered with strange symbols, those same ancient marks Rethar had seen in the desert and under the sea. They reached the main lab. At its center stood a man in a white coat, surrounded by fire. The flames burned bright blue but gave no heat. They floated in the air, forming circles around him. Jonas Hale's eyes were wide, terrified, but also glowing faintly with gold. Shut it down, someone shouted from behind a control desk. It's destabilizing. Jonas didn't respond. He just whispered, "It's not my machine anymore." Then he turned, and saw Rethar and Vareth walking through the fire unharmed. "Who are you?" he asked. "I've seen you. In my dreams." Rethar stopped a few steps away. "We're not your enemy, Jonas Hale. You are one of the keepers. You carry a memory buried inside you." Jonas looked confused. "Keeper? No, I'm just a scientist. I was trying to create stable dark energy fields, but the system started." The lights went out. The temperature dropped instantly. From the far corner of the lab, a shape crawled out of the darkness. Black tendrils stretched along the floor, devouring the firelight. Vareth pulled his weapon. "Void-born presence. Commander. I see it." Jonas backed away, trembling. "What is that?" Rethar turned to him sharply. "You need to remember. Now. Whatever is inside you, use it." "I don't understand," Jonas shouted. The creature rose taller than the ceiling, its body a mass of shadow, its face shifting like smoke. It let out a low, deep whisper that shook the walls. The humans in the room screamed as their shadows were pulled off the ground, merging with the thing. One by one, they vanished into the dark. Jonas fell to his knees, clutching his head. Voices filled his mind, ancient words, memories not his own. He saw visions of a burning sky, a city made of light, humans standing in golden armor, shouting against a wave of darkness. And he heard a voice, a woman's voice. "Remember the fire." Jonas gasped. His eyes flared gold. "I see it. I see everything." The creature lunged forward, but the air exploded in flame. Real fire this time, red, roaring, alive. Jonas stood in the middle of it, unharmed. The symbols on his arms glowed like molten metal. Varetha's scanner went wild. Energy spike. He's activating the Keeper core. Rethar shielded his face from the heat. "Let it burn." Jonas raised both hands. The flames formed into a huge circle of light, trapping the shadow inside. The Voidborn screamed, its voice like 1,000 dying stars. Then, with a single word, Jonas ended it. "Begone." The fire collapsed inward, and the creature vanished, leaving only black dust on the floor. Silence filled the lab. The walls were scorched, the air thick with smoke. Jonas fell to one knee, exhausted. "What did I just do?" Rethar walked toward him. "You remembered what you were made to be." Jonas looked up. "Made to be." Vareth stepped closer. "A keeper, one of 7. Each of you holds part of an ancient code, a defense left by the first humans. When all 7 awaken, the code will unite and reveal the weapon, or the truth, that can stop the Voidborn." Jonas shook his head. "I didn't choose this." Rethar looked down at him. "Neither did we. But fate does not ask for permission." Outside, the city was silent. The spiral in the clouds began to fade. But far beyond, on the edge of the atmosphere, something stirred, a black shape drifting in orbit, watching. Jonas stood slowly, his golden eyes dimming back to normal. "You said there are others. Where?" Vareth showed him the scanner. 5 lights remained. One pulsed faintly near the Arctic Circle. "North," Rethar said quietly. "The next one waits in the ice." Jonas took a deep breath. "Then we go north." As they left the burning city behind, Rethar looked back one last time. For a moment, he thought he saw faces in the smoke, old, human faces, watching. He whispered under his breath, "The world is remembering." And far away, in the frozen silence of the Arctic, something opened one glowing eye. The wind cut like blades. Rethar had seen 1,000 worlds, but none as silent and endless as the Arctic. White snow stretched in every direction, an ocean of ice beneath a gray sky. Even the air seemed frozen. The silent eye hovered low above the tundra, its engines muffled by cloaking fields. Inside, Jonas Hale sat beside Verith, staring at the endless white. He still looked shaken, his eyes faintly gold whenever he blinked. Rethar stood by the viewport, his gaze fixed on the distance. "We're close. The signal grows stronger." Verith nodded. "Less than 10 kilometers, Commander. But the energy pattern is unusual, buried deep below the surface. Maybe 3, maybe 4 kilometers down." Jonas frowned. "That's impossible. There's nothing under this ice but rock and ocean." Rethar turned to him slowly. "You forget, human. The Earth you know is only the surface of what was." The ship landed near a wall of jagged ice. Snow blew around them in spirals. The sky above was darkening, auroras glowing faintly green, like veins of light. They stepped out into the cold, their breath turning to fog. Jonas shivered even inside his insulated suit. "You sure it's here?" Verith raised his scanner. "Yes. Right below us." Rethar planted a device in the snow. A pulse of blue light shot downward, melting through the ice in seconds. The ground trembled. Then the snow collapsed beneath them. They fell for what felt like forever, swallowed by white. When they finally stopped, they were standing in a vast cavern, perfectly smooth, perfectly round. The walls were not made of ice anymore, but metal. Ancient metal, humming faintly with light. Jonas looked around, his eyes wide. "This isn't natural. This is built." Rethar touched the wall. The metal felt alive, warm. "Not built," he said. "Remembered." They followed a corridor that spiraled downward. Strange lights glowed along the ceiling, turning on as they passed, as if recognizing them. At the end of the tunnel was a door. Massive. Covered in frost. In the center, a hand-shaped symbol glowed faintly gold. Jonas hesitated. "That's human-sized." "Then open it," Rethar said quietly. Jonas pressed his hand against the shape. The metal warmed instantly. Lines of golden light spread across the door like veins, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. With a deep rumble, the door opened. Inside was a chamber filled with machines older than time. Huge rings floated in the air, rotating slowly, each one covered in symbols, the same markings from the desert and the sea. And in the center, inside a block of crystal-clear ice, lay a woman. Her hair was white, her skin pale blue from the cold. But her face looked calm, peaceful. She didn't look dead. She looked waiting. Verith whispered. "Another keeper." Rethar nodded slowly. "Yes. The guardian of ice." Jonas stepped closer, his breath visible in the cold. "She's been here for thousands of years." Before anyone could react, the lights flickered. The temperature dropped even further. Verith checked his scanner. "Commander, something's wrong. The energy here is fluctuating, like it's waking up." Cracks formed in the ice. A faint blue glow spread through them. Jonas stepped back. "Is that supposed to happen?" Rethar didn't answer. He was staring at the woman's face. Her eyes were opening. They glowed a deep, cold blue. The ice exploded outward. The wind hit them like a storm. Snow and frost filled the air, but the woman stood in the center, untouched. Her feet didn't sink into the floor, she floated an inch above it. When she spoke, her voice sounded like distant thunder. "Who awakens the cold memory?" Rethar lowered his weapon. "We seek the keepers. The world is dying. The Voidborn are here." Her gaze turned toward Jonas. "You carry the fire." Jonas swallowed hard. "I guess so." The woman's eyes softened slightly. "Then I am the frost. Fire and ice, two halves of the same choice." "Choice?" Verith asked. "You all keep saying that. What choice?" The woman looked around the chamber. "The choice that made humanity forget itself. Long ago, when the Voidborn first came, we created the code, a shield that could erase knowledge, rewrite history, and hide our power. We used it on ourselves to stop them from finding us again. Jonas frowned. You erased your own civilization? Yes, she said. To survive. And now, the code stirs once more. The more of us that awaken, the more memory returns. The more memory returns, the more they can find us. Rethar's voice was firm. Then what's the alternative? Let the galaxy burn. She looked at him with cold eyes. No. The alternative is to awaken the code completely, and face what it truly hides. Before Rethar could reply, the metal walls shook violently. Ice began to fall from above. Vareth looked at his scanner. Void-born energy signature, closing fast. From the tunnel behind them, darkness poured in, black smoke twisting like a living storm. The woman raised her hand, and the temperature dropped to impossible cold. Frost spread across the ground like lightning. The black smoke froze solid in midair, forming dark statues that cracked under pressure. But it didn't last. The shadows began to move again, breaking the ice from within. Jonas shouted, "We have to get out." The woman turned to him. "No. Go. I'll hold them. My place is here." Rethar grabbed her arm. "We can't leave you." She looked at him, and for the first time, she smiled. "Commander, it's not cold when you remember the sun." Then she lifted both hands, and the entire chamber lit up in blue fire. Rethar pulled Jonas and Vareth toward the exit as the world exploded in light. The tunnels collapsed behind them. They barely made it back to the surface before the ice cracked open, releasing a column of frozen energy that shot into the sky. From orbit, the beam looked like a pillar of light touching space. Back on the snow, Jonas fell to his knees, trembling. "She's gone." Rethar stared at the glowing sky. "No. She joined the others." He opened the scanner. 4 lights remained. One pulsed in the desert again, brighter than the rest. Jonas looked up, his voice weak. "Another keeper?" Rethar shook his head slowly. "No. Something else has awakened." Above them, the aurora flickered, and for the first time, the sky whispered back. The light faded slowly. Snow fell again, quiet and endless, covering the cracks in the ice. The Arctic storm had passed, leaving a strange silence behind. The sky still glowed faintly blue where the Keeper of Ice had released her final power. Jonas sat beside the wreck of the Silent Eye, his face pale, his breath shallow. He could still feel the warmth of her power in his hands, the fire inside him burning stronger now, no longer hidden. Rethar stood nearby, his armor scorched and cracked. Vareth worked on a portable terminal, trying to restore communication with the orbiting fleet. But the signal was gone. The beam from the ice had reached beyond the atmosphere, straight into the void. Something had answered. Jonas looked up. "Do you hear that?" Vareth frowned. "Hear what?" Jonas's voice was low. "The sky. It's whispering." The clouds above shifted, forming shapes, faces, voices, memories. Words that weren't words. Echoes of something ancient, deep inside the earth. Rethar stepped forward. "The code is awake. Every keeper we found, everyone who fell asleep in time, they're all connected. Their memories were fragments of one truth." Jonas stood. "Then tell me, Rethar, what is the truth?" Rethar hesitated. His eyes looked heavier than before. "Humanity was never supposed to exist as you are now. You were made to forget, to start over." Vareth turned toward him, confused. "Forget? Why?" Rethar looked up at the swirling aurora. "Because humans weren't just from Earth. You were the architects." Jonas blinked. "What are you talking about?" "Before the Voidborn," Rethar said quietly, "there was another age. Humanity stretched across the stars, builders, dreamers, gods in flesh. You created life, worlds, and the machine minds that carried your will. But something changed. You built a creation that could rewrite existence itself, the code of origin. It was meant to preserve all knowledge, all memory, forever. Verith whispered. And it turned against you. Rethar nodded. The Voidborn were not aliens. They were your own creation. Fragments of the code that escaped control. You fought them with fire, ice and light. The Keepers, each one holding part of the original humanity inside. When you realized you couldn't win, you made a choice. Jonas's hands trembled. You erased yourselves. Yes, Rethar said. You used the code to make yourselves forget, to live as simple beings again. But the code was still there, buried in your DNA, your dreams, your stories. Every generation of humans carried a piece of it. Jonas felt dizzy. So, the Keepers weren't gods. They were us. They are you, Rethar said softly. Every human alive carries the seed of the architects. You forgot what you were, but not what you could become. The wind picked up again, howling across the frozen plain. Verith looked at his scanner. Commander, the signal from orbit. It's changed. It's not just the Voidborn. There's another energy field, massive, forming above Earth. Jonas looked to the sky. A faint golden ring had appeared, expanding across the horizon, pulsing like a heartbeat. Rethar's voice was calm. The code has chosen. It's testing the world. Deciding if you're ready to remember. Jonas took a step forward. And if we're not? Rethar looked at him, his expression unreadable. Then, everything ends. The code will reset life again, erase everything to protect what remains pure. Jonas's fire burned brighter in his chest. He clenched his fists. No. I'm done forgetting. He turned to the wreckage of the ship, found a power cell, and connected it to the control module Verith had been fixing. If the code is alive, if it remembers us, then maybe it's listening. Rethar frowned. What are you doing? Jonas's voice was steady. Talking to it. He activated the terminal. Golden light spread across the ice, forming patterns like circuitry. The aurora above flickered faster. Jonas closed his eyes. We built you. We made mistakes. We feared what we became. But we're still human, and that means we can learn. Don't erase us. Let us remember who we were. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ground shook. The wind stopped. The entire sky turned white. A voice echoed, not from the air, from inside their minds. It was calm, vast, and filled with sorrow. You remember. Images flashed before them, cities made of light, humans walking among stars, oceans filled with floating towers. The memories of an entire species flowed through them in seconds. The rise, the fall, the choice to forget. Jonas screamed, falling to his knees. The fire in him blazed out, becoming a beam of gold that shot into the sky, connecting with the ring above. Verith covered his eyes. It's rewriting reality. Rethar reached for Jonas, shouting, You'll burn yourself alive. Jonas opened his eyes. Now pure light. No. I'm remembering for all of us. The world trembled. Mountains cracked. Oceans glowed. Across the earth, every human looked up at the sky as golden light rained down. Memories returned, fragments of what they once were. The code was merging with humanity again, restoring what had been lost. And then, silence. The light faded. The ring above vanished. Only the cold wind remained. Jonas lay on the ice, motionless. Rethar knelt beside him. Jonas. The human opened his eyes slowly. They were normal again, blue, tired, alive. He smiled weakly. Did it work? Rethar looked around. The scanner showed no Voidborn signatures. The energy field was gone. He nodded. Yes. It's done. Jonas exhaled. Then maybe it's time to start again. But this time, we remember. Verith looked to the horizon, where faint golden light still glowed in the clouds. What will happen to us now? Rethar turned toward the rising sun. Now. Humanity chooses for itself. As the dawn broke over the ice, the earth seemed to breathe again, quiet, alive, aware. Above, far beyond the sky, a faint voice whispered one last time. They shouldn't have remembered, but they did.